Yeah, my people, you see, I would like you to watch this video. Please make sure you have data to watch this video and make sure you watch to the end. This man Dele to me really said a lot. He said many things that if you are not powerful enough and says what this man said in this very video, you might end up in jail within 24 hours. But this man said it all without fear, without being deterred, without any form of intimidation. He said it all. Nigeria might has happened to you in several ways. Nigeria happens to all of us in many ways every day of our lives. I don't know whether you have realized how much Nigeria has done to you. If you have realized it, you are one of the lucky ones, because there are a lot of us that have not yet realized or understood that Nigeria is happening to us every day, teaching us all kinds of things. I'd like you to watch this video. Please pay attention to it and watch to the end. Like, it will really educate you. If you value something good, watch this video. It will enlighten you. God bless you. Do not forget to share it for other people to see it. If it's your first time coming across my videos, I plead with you to follow my page and subscribe. God bless you.
Has Nigeria happened to you?
Oh, it happens to the Nigerian every day. It's just the stage of our consciousness of what is happening to us that differs. Nigeria happens to the Nigerian every day. We seek to prevent Nigeria from happening to us. Sometime in the morning, you find Nigerians waking up and crouching on the floor and praying against all the dangers of the country that they have built. So Nigeria is happening to them on a daily basis. And it happens to me as well. If I had to get up in my house at 4:29 this morning in order to make a court date in Ibadan when I shouldn't even be here in the first place, it begins to tell you about how Nigeria happens to us variously. Every time you have to do something that was not meant to be done, but you have to do it to survive the country in which you live, that is Nigeria happening to you. When you have to get out of your house as early as 5 o'clock in the morning to make your office for 8 o'clock, that is Nigeria happening to you. When you have to pay out of pocket for children's school fees when the education is meant to be free even at primary school level, or these children are going to schools that are best teaching illiteracy and you have to go out of pocket to get good schools, that is Nigeria happening to you. Nigeria happens to the Nigerian on a daily basis. Whether you are poor, rich, members of the ruining class, or one of their victims, Nigeria happens to all of us every day. It's the degree to which we are conscious of what is happening to us that differs from person to person.
Degree of consciousness?
Yeah, degree of consciousness.
What does that mean?
You have some nebulists in place of citizens, persons who are sleepwalking through life, perpetually making excuses for their oppressors and ruiners instead of focusing on what is happening to them and how to prevent that from being passed down to the next generation. They would rather make excuses on behalf of those who are ruining their lives. So it's a function of consciousness. If you are unaware of the fact that you are oppressed, you are more receptive to the idea of oppression. But the more aware you become, the more conscious you are, the more you can articulate the condition of the victim, you become a danger to the oppressive system, and you become an irritant to those who have become accepting of oppression. So,
well, in your book, you accepted that there is the weaponization of ignorance.
Yeah. The fact that I can identify it is suggestive of the fact that I'm not affected by that weaponized ignorance. The average Nigerian sit down on a daily basis and they are busy consuming news written for them by those who are looking to shape the narrative and focus their attention away from the real issues. They are told that it's the Christians. They are told that it's the Muslims. And these are coming through supposedly credible news channels. You do not have a media that questions any longer. Largely, the Nigerian media has become complicit. So who is teaching anybody? The weaponized ignorance comes in multiple fashion. Today in Nigeria, you don't have a national curriculum that is known to all. You don't have a national education curriculum that we can interrogate. It comes out piecemeal at the discretion of whoever is administering the system whenever they care, which is why you are getting all kinds of funny textbooks coming out and being flagged. Nobody can tell you that this is the national curriculum. That is the beginning of the weaponization of ignorance. I identified weaponized ignorance for the first time in 1994 as an undergraduate. That was the first time I used that phrase. I could see the deliberate undereducation of the Nigerian child. So if we're talking weaponized ignorance, you must understand that it's not a one-line item. It's a systemic thing. The weaponized ignorance has affected the trade. You don't have tradesmen any longer. Where you have them, they are barely literate. You have tailors who do not even understand the geometry of the human body. So they sew for you sometimes. You wear a shirt and you find that one part is taller than the other side, and then it's looking like a carpenter sewed the shirt. That is part of the weaponized ignorance. Everything is degraded. The human capacity to imagine, to function, and to even execute instructions have been degraded. When you deliberately ignore to train people to the point where a country as rich and blessed as Nigeria has over 130 million children, those are the ones between the ages of 5 to 14 out of school, 30 million. What kind of future are you expecting from children that you are refusing to train?
So will you want to blame the ignorant for not understanding that the oppressor is after him?
You see, the Yorubas have a proverb I would attempt to translate. And what it says is that the wise will teach the ignorant. But that presumes the readiness of the ignorant to learn. Unfortunately for us in Nigeria, especially those of us who presume to know, who are looking to teach, we're competing with a system that has weaponized even religion. Religion in its root comes from the Latin word religare, or you go to Old French, religio. Both of them means the same thing, to bind. But what is being bound by religion is the human imagination, which is the seat of our creativity. You then come to a place like Nigeria where religion has been weaponized to the point where charlatans are touting all kind of funny precepts and principles and dogmas are being taught, and people are embracing them as truth. People are telling you they enter toilet in one European country to come out in the toilet in another European country. People are telling you to fast and pray for Nigeria when they didn't fast and pray to build all the prayer cities and redemption camps that they are building all over the place. People are telling you to embrace Sharia. Meanwhile, the Sharia that they are embracing here does not build the kind of fantastic countries that have been built in the Emirates or even in Saudi Arabia. Religion has become a destructive force, an excuse for not doing anything, for inaction, for cowardice. So when you talk about ignorance, you must understand that in the Nigerian context, the ignorance that is already weaponized against the people by the refusal to educate or by the intention to miseducate is compounded by the fact that religion is layered on top of that, and it does not promote the use of the human intellect. If anything, it says leave everything to God.
I have read your books. The Imperatives of the Nigerian Revolution and this, Do Not Die in Their War. Look at this. If you read these books, you will walk through the mind of the author, Dele Rotime. So having read your work, I come out with the conclusion that he is a radical intellectual. Then if he's an intellectual and he resides in an ignorant nation, has he failed?
Well, let me put it this way. When I started out, I imagined that I could change my country by sheer force of persuasion. And then I found very quickly that I embraced what I these days describe as the Elijah complex. The Elijah complex is the one that leads you into believing that you are the only one that knows how to do it. And if you can't do it, then it simply can't be done. Remember, Elijah was busy calling fire from heaven, burn the offering, pour water and all. He did all those mighty works, and then he heard that Jezebel was after him, and he ran to the cave of Adullam and he started crying, I'm the only one that is left of all your God said, shut up. I got 7,500 you know nothing about. So I learned very early in life that I must never presume that simply because of the insignificance of my own contribution or my inability to dent the mountain that I see in front of me, I learned not to despair. I learned very quickly that I should just play my own role. Other people will do their own part. It might be in this season or it might be in the time to come. I learned long time ago not to allow myself to be bothered by the frustrations of my environment. The fact of the matter is that I take comfort in knowing that I speak timeless truths, I write timeless truths. If and when the time comes for a generation that will make use of what I have written, of the things I'm saying, they will find their way to rectitude.
This generation is already reading you.
I had to get away from assuming that this generation would do it. When I was embracing my Elijah complex, I was assuming that because I see hopelessness in this generation, I see a defeated people. I see a people born defeated, willing to accept all kind of madness. Even when you speak on their behalf, they are the first to cast you down for simply having the audacity to say what they are refusing to say, even though you are speaking to their pains.
Do you care?
The point where I stopped caring was when I arrived at the position that I'm actually not writing for this generation. I'm not talking for this generation.
You said you are writing for history.
I'm writing for posterity. I'm writing for another generation that will come on. The truth is the truth is the truth, regardless of where and when it is spoken.
But I'm saying you have written for this generation.
I have written. It is for this generation to decide whether what I am saying works for them. I know that what I have said, the things I have written, are found untruthful precepts. Now, whether my society is accepting of the truth or not is a different ballgame entirely. But I have evolved to a point, perhaps of arrogance, where I am not bothered by the acceptance of my society. I couldn't care less whether this society embraces me or accepts the truth of what I have said to them, because I know of the timelessness of truth and the godly nature of truth. I know that as long as the things I have written are found on truth, it will resonate with a generation that desires to return to normalcy. They would also be able to retrace their steps back to the point where we lost the battle, if we lose the battle. But it is critical that we tell these truths. It was a wise man that said that the truth that is untold is not the truth. It is only the truth we tell that is the truth. If you know a truth and you prefer to keep quiet and you found a reason to be silent, the reality is that that truth is not told. Truth dies in darkness. I think it was a New York Times that had that as their masthead at some point in the past, or maybe Washington Post. I'm not sure which one now. But truth dies in darkness. If you do not articulate the truth, it dies.
But this generation loves you.
See, this generation looks for messiahs. I am not a messiah. I'm just Dele Rotime, another Nigerian, Watts and Hall, with all the weaknesses of every other human being. I don't need them to love me. I need them to act on the truth that they know. We find it very comfortable and convenient to point fingers at our ruiners. But the reality is that the true change that Nigeria desires or demands or needs has to come from the individual, coming to the knowledge of the fact that we cannot continue like this. If there is no personal regeneration, there cannot be national regeneration.
If there is ignorance, we need a lot of mental work to drive them.
There are two levels of ignorance.
Okay.
There is the ignorance that is visited on a man, and then there is the willful ignorance. The most damaging of ignorance that I have seen in Nigeria is the willful ignorance. The one where a man is confronted with the truth. He's right there in front of him. He can see it. You've articulated it. The evidences of his own eyes, his ears, and his God-given brain is suggestive of the fact that he should do a course correction. But the person's ability to process the truth has been impaired either by religion, ethnicity, or sometimes a combination of both. They simply cannot process the information. You're telling someone that the fact that this man is from your ethnic nation does not mean he's the best thing for our country. And you say, no, it's our turn. Yes, it's our turn. I've heard you. But would you employ this person in your poultry if you were running a poultry? Say, like, would you have this person as your son-in-law? Say, God forbid. But you want this person in charge of the Commonwealth? The biggest problem we have in Nigeria, yes, we have ignorance, but the willfulness of the ignorance, the deliberate refusal to be enlightened, to be educated. You even see certificated morons, people with PhDs, master degree, and they are refusing the evidence of their own eyes. That has nothing to do with, it's not plain ignorance. That's deliberate. It's intentional. Somebody is being intentionally blind. I'm saying remove the blindfold in your eyes. I can see the look at this. No, I've been told it's white. Okay, they told you it's white. I'm showing you it's red. You can see it. You say, no, I don't want to look at it. That is willful ignorance. And that is the most common kind of ignorance in Nigeria.
How did you develop your consciousness?
My brother, sometimes I wish I knew. If I know how to get rid of it, I'll get rid of it, because ignorance is bliss. I've carried this around with me since before I was 17 years old. Let's just say sense was slapped into me. I recounted the incident in Do Not Die in Their War, where a policeman slapped me when I was in Oscars. That was what slapped me awake to the reality of the country in which I live. I have always had this romantic view of life. I grew up a bookworm. And if you're a reader, you're really bound to a geographical location. So I read all kinds of books and I saw myself as a citizen. I had all the lofty ideas of citizenship in my head, all kinds of lofty ambitions for the country, Nigeria. We were the ones termed the greater tomorrow. I entered secondary school in 78. We were the ones who Uncle Bola came and informed that we were the young pioneers. So we had lofty ideas in our heads, and I grew up with that. Nigeria was supposed to be a great country. All kinds of lofty slogans were very, very trendy in my youth. Operation Feed the Nation, all kinds of big words. So I grew up believing that a great country, the giant of Africa, we were the ones who were there fighting in SWAPO, in Namibia, offering succor to the South Africans. That was the Nigeria in which I grew up. I grew up in a Nigeria where when I went to UCH as a young boy, maybe I must have been about 7, 8. I still have the memory. Nurses in dainty dresses with dainty caps on their head. They will bring my medicine in cups, plastic dispensing cups in UCH. I can still remember. I went back to the same UCH a few years ago before when my late father-in-law was admitted there. It stinks to high heaven. Nothing new, just we find them painting a sepulcher. That is the Nigeria that we have today. So it's, to be conscious is very easy if you had grown up in my generation, because there were too many good things happening all around us. We didn't know at the time that we were merely witnessing the beginning of the decadence of Nigeria, but it was too easy to be conscious.
What kind of books did you read?
Name it, I read it. I went to Fidelity Grammar School, and I think before I was even in Form 3, I'd read practically every book in that library that wasn't a science textbook.
That wasn't a science.
If it wasn't a science textbook, I'd read it.
Did you read books on power?
Everything and anything that was. I was just a voracious reader, and I enjoyed reading.
And what did reading do to your mind?
It blew my mind up. I lost all sense of boundaries. You can't be a reader and be bound to a geographical location. When I was in Fidelity Grammar School, they had a very rich library of Commonwealth literature.
In secondary school?
In secondary school. Commonwealth literature. So folk tales from New Zealand, from Australia, from Canada, all kind of Commonwealth countries donated books, literature books, compilation, antonyms. You had all kind of folk tales, volumes and volumes of them. It was fun. It was an escape. I'm right there in the bushes of Fidelity, but I'll be in the backwaters of New Zealand and Australia. I read Huckleberry Finn. I read all those books when I was by the time we were in like Form 4, there was no James Ali Chase to read any longer, because there was nothing else to do but read.
So while you were reading, did you at any time feel you could change the world?
You know, the mind of a child does not embrace impossibilities. A child naturally believes that anything it can imagine can be achieved. I didn't grow up thinking I was going to change Nigeria. I didn't think there was anything to change. I wasn't conscious enough to realize there was anything to change. I just grew up believing that this country had all the potential to become one of the greatest in the world. It wasn't until the time when we were entering universities in the mid-80s. I entered university in 1985. It wasn't until around that time that you became more exposed to the madness of Nigeria. My brain opening slap was received in 1984.
In Ife?
In Ife. Well, that was 83, 84. That was when I got my brain openings. No, 84, 85. But I entered last week, 85, 86. So it was during my time in Oscars that I received that slap. What that slap did to me was that it forced me to recalibrate the way I engaged with my country. I hadn't done anything. I was merely going to class to read, even though there had been some unrest earlier in the day. And I walked into a policeman who was assigned to the neighborhood to keep the peace, so that students who were intent on rioting would not be able to riot. It was clear to anyone looking at me that I was going to read. I had my books on me. The man saw me, simply because I didn't run like everyone he might have been encountering. He slapped me so hard that my books fell down. And the way he looked at me, I knew that even if he had cared to shoot, nothing would have happened. And by the time we grew older, we heard that multiple times, uttered by law enforcement agents. I'll shoot you and nothing will happen. So from that moment, I realized that it wasn't the nice rosy world that I imagined I was living in. So I became more conscious of all the madness that I had probably overlooked or not seen. And the more I looked, the more I saw.
Your books fell down when he slapped you?
Oh, yes, he did.
Did you pick up the books?
In all honesty, I can't even remember now, if the truth be told. The only thing I remember is that slap rewired my brains. It was a brain rewiring exercise. Any illusion I ever had about Nigeria disappeared in that moment. Any illusion of citizenship I had ever harbored evaporated with that slap. I knew from that moment that I live in a criminal empire where I actually am not deserving of any right as far as the operators of the system are concerned.
And how did you make up your mind to survive in that state?
Put it this way. The real victim is the person who is unconscious or unaware of his state of existence. I am a Nigerian. I wear no glasses in relation to my country. I see Nigeria in its ugly nudity at any point in time.
Ugly nudity?
Oh, very ugly country. Very, very ugly country.
Are you ugly?
Unfortunately, every Nigerian is rendered ugly by his circumstances unless we continue to lie to ourselves. I spent 3 weeks in prison. I had no business being there. And I saw multiple persons who had no business in that prison either.
In Ekiti?
Yes. Multiple persons. There were 11 persons in my cell. I foresaw that at least 9 of them had no business being there.
What were they doing there?
The Nigerian state decided that they should spend some time there. Maybe somebody offended someone, maybe some civil case that should have been settled in a civil manner or in civil court was criminalized because somebody knew policeman.